Good morning. You're joining us live here on India Today's social media handles. I'm Akshita Nandgopal, getting you all of the top stories that we're tracking today. It's 26th July. Every year we mark this day as Kargil Vijay Divas, a day when we hail all of the heroes of the Kargil War of 1999. 23rd anniversary this year around, and we've been seeing tributes pouring in for all of the soldiers that we've lost, the countless soldiers who were part of the war and ensured that emphatic victory over Pakistan. The tributes that have been pouring in through the day has not just been from armed forces, from compatriots, but also from others. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited the National War Memorial early this morning to lay a wreath, pay his tribute at the Drass Memorial, which is particularly for the Kargil heroes, for the fallen Kargil heroes. We saw a number of army officials also there, in fact, paying their tributes. And what we also saw is essentially all of these soldiers with such a sense of pride talking about the stories of the Kargil War, about many of them who weren't even part of the war, but the heroic tales of valor that they hear about as well, which I'm sure plays such a big role in inspiring them today as well. So on this day of the 23rd anniversary of the Kargil War, we're also going to be talking about many of the heroes that we still remember and the sacrifice that led to us winning that war against Pakistan. This entire war, if you look at the Kargil War, lasted from about May till July, and one of the most talked about moments of the war was the battle for Tiger Hill, which is in fact in Kargil itself, in Ladakh. Extreme temperatures, it's one of the highest peaks there, so you can imagine how bad it was. And despite those extreme weather conditions, when Pakistani forces occupied Tiger Hill, our soldiers bravely went up there and pushed the Pakistan forces back. It took some time, it took multiple operations, but in the last operation that they were successful in, it's also important to highlight that there was a lot of help that came in from the Indian Air Force, which also needs to be very prominently talked about here, about the IAF's role in this entire war and ensuring that it turned in our direction. That particular war that played out in 1999 in Kargil is something that's still fresh in Pakistan's minds. It's why even to this date, despite whatever provocation comes from their side, they never dare to actually resort to any sort of war, knowing full well that our forces will ensure a defeat is handed over to them in a platter. So that's why it's important to highlight this kind of a day. It's important for us to show our gratitude also to our forces, many of whom unfortunately perished in the course of that war as well. And that's the message that's coming from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, from Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, and really from every dignitary, every political leader cutting across party lines. We're going to continue getting you all the tributes that are coming in on our social media handles. You can catch some extremely interesting stories of the Kargil War, first-hand accounts from soldiers who were there during the war, stories of our heroes and how they laid down their lives fighting for this country. All of that, much more, you can catch on our social media handles. I just want to tell you about the other stories also that we're tracking this morning. Sonia Gandhi is appearing before the Enforcement Directorate for the second time in the National Herald case. July 21st was the last time she appeared. Then she was questioned for about 3 hours, and the ED said that it was because she had requested permission to go and get her medication at home, so they let her go after 3 hours. The Congress has refuted that. They're saying that wasn't the case. Quite simply, ED ran out of questions. Sonia Gandhi cooperated, told them, you want to ask more questions, go ahead. But they said, we have nothing more, so she left. But today, round 2 will happen, and already, the kind of scenes that I've been witnessing just moments ago on air on India Today TV is of chaos. You've got, again, protests by Congress leaders, and every time they refer to this as a satyagraha, but what you see is the complete opposite on ground, because inevitably cops don't give them permission for these protests, saying that the parliament is in session. We can't have these kind of agitations. Congress leaders, irrespective of that, try to march to the ED office and then end up getting detained. It is not just in Delhi. Last week in several parts of the country, we saw clashes, we saw violence, there were incidents of arson in cities like Bengaluru as well. So let's hope it doesn't, kind of get down and ugly like that. And we see some sort of peaceful protests. The Congress has every right to protest, of course, but that it's a peaceful dharna as they promise, which every single time turns completely unruly and chaotic. But as far as Sonia Gandhi's questioning is concerned, what we've heard from our reporters on the ground who've been in constant touch with the Enforcement Directorate is that there are a lot of aspects with regards to the money laundering, and particularly the AGL versus to Young India transfer that happened. The details of that is something that they want to question Sonia Gandhi about. We'll see how long the questioning lasts, because Sonia Gandhi is currently also ailing. So she is, of course, in need of her medication as well. Priyanka Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi will be accompanying her to the Enforcement Directorate office. We'll be getting you the latest on that as well, and also the latest on the protests. Just quickly also want to get you the update on what's happening in Bengal, because what's dominated headlines is the cash for job scam, the teacher recruitment scam. Partha Chatterjee, TMC minister, is right now the main accused. He's in ED custody. Last few days, there's been a bit of drama because he said that, I'm ailing, I can't be questioned by the Enforcement Directorate. He's been complaining of chest pain. The Enforcement Directorate, in turn, responded by approaching the courts, saying transfer Partha Chatterjee to a central government-run hospital, not a state-run hospital, and let him get checked there. So he was taken to AIIMS Bhubaneswar yesterday in accordance with the Calcutta High Court order. AIIMS said there's nothing wrong with him, he's perfectly fine. So he was then brought back to Kolkata early this morning, and now he's at the ED office and not in some hospital where he's being questioned about this entire case. A lot of murky details that have come in, 21 crores of cash, there's jewelry worth crores, even property named after his dogs, which are under the scanner right now. So the Enforcement Directorate is hoping to get those details. Remember that one of his close aides, Arpita Mukherjee, is also in custody, and she's reportedly washed her hands off completely, saying that if any money was laundered through me, Partha Chatterjee is to blame. And the TMC, interestingly, also has said very clearly that if someone is corrupt, we have zero tolerance. So they're not backing him in any way either. Mamata Banerjee reportedly refused to answer Partha Chatterjee's calls. Her message also has been exactly that we don't tolerate any corruption. But having said that, she's also said that the BJP has no right to preach to us. Let's see what the ED finds, because they've always maintained, of course, that these agencies are used by the central government. But seeing the mountain of proof against Partha Chatterjee, even the TMC seems to have come to terms with the fact that they can't deny that there seems to be clear stains of corruption in this particular case that they also need to consider, need to look into, which is why they've chosen to completely distance themselves at this point from Partha Chatterjee. So those are the stories that you need to know about this morning. All of that, much more, you can track on our social media handles.